Did it work, guys? Did it portal you over? Did I just do my first portal? Did it work? Did it work? Yay! Cool. Okay. This is the trial of Linda Stermer. She allegedly, in 2007, she either knocked out her husband physically or with horse tranquilizers, doused him in gasoline, set him on fire, and then when he ran out of the house, ran him over with a van. She was convicted and found guilty, sentenced to life without parole. And then in, I think it was 2018, her conviction was overturned because her attorney did not put forth a fire expert. And then years later, her daughter hired a fire expert who re-examined the case. And also, she claimed that she got in the van to go get help because she had to get out of the house because of the fire. And I didn't even see that until Carla laughed at it. The prosecutor said that, I meant to take that banner down, although it might have to go up again. The prosecutor said she had 2 cell phones, so she had plenty of ability to call because she owned 2 cell phones, so she at least had to have at least one on her. But that was not true. So for those 2 reasons, her conviction was overturned, and she's been out all this time. And exactly. So when they got married, she had 2 daughters. I think it was 2 from a previous marriage. They have 2 sons together. And then she had a nephew that was from a bad home, and they took him in. So the boys believe that she murdered him. The daughters do not. They are on her side. She lives with one of her daughters now. I'm assuming she's still out on bail. That's one thing I'm not clear on, because I watched an episode of 48 Hours to get my background on this case so I could tell you guys. So, I was thinking that same thing. But the fire investigator that the daughter hired said that the reason why he had traces of gasoline on him was because the neighbor that came over to help was an auto restorer, and he took an old shirt that he had and threw over him, and that's where he got the traces of gasoline. Not that he was doused in it. And she had no traces of gasoline on her, which she would have had if she had doused him with gasoline. So basically, that is part of the reason why the conviction was overturned. But then the conviction was appealed, and so now she's standing trial again for the second time. So I don't know. But her sons don't even call her mom anymore. They call her Linda. And so, and that's all I know. Come on, unmute. You can do it. Thank you. Oh, and the daughters say that he was abusive. The sons say he was not. I don't know the ages. I'm sorry.
Court calls the case of People versus Linda Stermer. Parties are present, jury is not present.
Look at her trying to look old.
I believe we've all discussed sequestration of witnesses in chambers, so we would be asking for that, Your Honor.
Agreed. Okay, I'll sequester witnesses.
That's disgusting.
Allowed to sit in on testimony of other experts.
And as well as our.
She was having an affair.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And investigating officers excluded.
But she claims she wasn't. But the boyfriend testified at the trial that they were having an affair.
One more time now.
Did you have any investigator that you wanted excluded from the sequestration?
Yeah, that would be Mr. Tranquil, but he won't be here today.
Okay. Any other matters to address before we go to the jury?
Her hair with gray. But then
No, I think we addressed those in the chambers.
the 48 hours episode had dyed it brown again. And now she's blue. Yeah, she was having an affair. Oh, and she sent her sons to the movies so they wouldn't be there because they were going to have a fight because she was going to leave him that day. And she didn't want the boys to be there to see that. So she woke them up and told them to go to the movies. I have a feeling my Don't Be Suspicious clip is going to get played today.
Sunglasses, so I didn't say something. Okay, welcome back, Terry. As I indicated, we're now opening statements.
Morning. Welcome back. Now is time for opening arguments. And just to let you know, thank you. I'll start over and introduce myself. Thank you very much for being here. I know that you probably know, I think prior from the judge who I am, but my name is Susan Zeiderveen, and I'm proud and honored to represent the state of Michigan and the people of Van Buren County as your elected prosecuting attorney. So now is the time for opening statements. It's our opportunity to tell you what to look for in the case, kind of our roadmap, what we plan to present to you over the course of the next several days, what evidence that we plan to present, and who will be testifying. So we talked a lot about in voir dire, about the charges and the elements. So I want to take a few minutes just to dive into what those elements are and what the charges are. We have count 1, first-degree murder, and we have count 2, felony murder. So what are the elements that we talked about that I need to prove to you? So for count 1, the very first element, the first box that we need to check, is that the defendant caused the death of Todd Stermer. That is, that Todd Stermer died as a result of the actions of the defendant. That's the first box. Second box, that the defendant intended to kill Todd Stermer. That's the second element. Third, that this intent to kill was premeditated. That is, thought out beforehand. And the last box, last element that I need to check on this count, is that the killing was deliberate, which means the defendant considered the pros and cons of the killing and thought about and chose her actions before she did it. There must have been real and substantial reflection for long enough to give a reasonable person a chance to think twice about the intent to kill. The law does not say how much time is needed. It's for you to decide if enough time passed under the circumstances of the case. And a killing cannot be the result of a sudden impulse without thought or reflection. Those are the four elements, the four boxes. So let's go to count two. These are the three boxes for count two. First, that the defendant caused the death of Todd Stermer. That is, that Todd Stermer died as a result of the actions of the defendant. Second box, that the defendant had one of these three states of mind. She intended to kill, or she intended to do great bodily harm to Todd Stermer, or she knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or such harm would be the likely result of her actions. That's the third box. I'm sorry, the second. Third box is that when she did the act that caused the death of Todd Stermer, the defendant was committing or attempting to commit the crime of arson. Those are your elements. Those are the boxes that I will be then working to check over the next few days. I want to give you the definition that the court will give you of arson, because I think it's important in satisfying the second count. What is an arson? These are the elements of the arson. First, that the defendant burned, damaged, or destroyed by fire or explosive a dwelling. If any part of the dwelling is burned, no matter how small, that is all that is necessary to count as a burning. The property does not have to be completely destroyed. The dwelling is not burned if it's merely blackened by smoke, but it is burned if it is charred so that any part of it is destroyed. That's the first box. Second, that at the time of the burning, damaging, or destroying, the property that was burned, damaged, or destroyed was a dwelling or any of its contents. That's the second element. Last one, that when the defendant burned, damaged, or destroyed the dwelling or any of its contents, she intended to burn, damage, or destroy the dwelling or its contents, or intentionally committed an act that created a very high risk of burning, damaging, or destroying the dwelling or its contents, and that while committing the act, the defendant knew of that risk and disregarded it. Those are all of the elements or boxes. So let's start out with what happened. January 7th, 2007, deputies Tony Evans and Gary Gress are dispatched to the house. It's a Sunday afternoon in January at approximately 3:30 in the afternoon. They go to County Road 215 for a reported structure fire. They find the Stermer residence in a fully involved fire. This is the scene that you will see and that we expect to present to you as they're driving in from their squad car. This is what they see. When they drive up, deputies locate several people standing on the north side of the residence. For those of you that are directionally challenged like I am, that's if you're looking at the front of the house, it'd be to the right of that picture. At this time, they locate Todd Stermer. He's laying in a pool of blood, approximately 20 to 25 yards from that side of that residence. Mr. Stermer this says unclothed. It's actually not 100% unclothed. His sweatpants and his underwear are pulled down to his ankles. He doesn't have a shirt on, and he's still wearing his socks. He is badly burned, and to say badly burned is an understatement. His burns cover almost all of his body. His hair is gone. His ears are deformed. His skin is slipping off his body. Due to his injuries, the people who are on scene try to move him farther from the home, just to be able to get him away from the fire and away from the house, and then they attempt to render aid. Due to the severity of Todd Stermer's injuries, he passes away shortly after people arrive due to those injuries. At this time, there are multiple people on scene, many of them who you'll hear from today. Mike Matheny, Connie Calhoun, our neighbors directly next door. Dr. Richard Musali, another neighbor, and Steve Leach, who was the fire chief at the time, all arrived within minutes and are on scene. You will hear from them what they saw in their statements. On January 7th, the day of the fire, the investigation starts. They call in after the original deputies are there. They end up calling in the detectives. They call in Detective Gabrielle Rout, who is now retired, and Detective Tom Maziowski, who's also now retired. And they respond to the scene a little bit later in the day. The investigation starts. They start collecting all the evidence that they have on scene. They take numerous photographs, of which we expect to present to you. And they find a van still running, located in the west of the Stermer residence. So those of you who are directionally challenged, the van is running in the backyard. Tire impressions are located, and the detectives mark them with flags, the tire impressions leading to the van. There are several items of clothing that the neighbors we listed, have taken out and placed on Todd's naked, burned body. Those are detectives and put in evidence. You will also hear on January 7th, the day of the fire, people start trying to gather some initial statements. What happened? You're going to hear from Deputy Gary Gruss, hopefully today, tell you what Linda's first statement was. You will also hear from Detective Gabrielle Rout. She also talked to Linda Stermer on that day, and you will hear what she told Gabrielle Rout. As this investigation continues on the 7th and the 8th, Detective Sergeant Scott Leroy is brought to the scene. He's the fire marshal, and he's brought in to then inspect for the fire investigation. He arrives on the day of the fire on January 7th. He's actually there when Todd Stermer's there. He takes pictures of Todd. He takes pictures of the scene. And he's the one that seizes the sweatpants wrapped around Todd Stermer's ankles because he smells an accelerant. He also arrives on scene the next day and conducts a further investigation. He takes additional photographs, of which you will see. He examines the structure of the house and possible causes of the fire. You will hear from Dr. Markey at Sparrow Hospital, who conducted the autopsy. You will hear his cause of death is from those burns that he suffered. You will also hear on January 8th, Don Galuz, who's a Berrien County Sheriff's Department deputy, is called to the scene to do mapping and distances of the scene. So I'm going to show you, I think this will show up on all of them. This is the driveway coming into the house here. Oops. You can see the house. You can see the north side where the victim and the tire tracks are here on the north. And you can see where the van is ultimately located in the backyard. And what makes this interesting is we expect to present to you details of the terrain of this yard. For those of you who are familiar with Michigan walkout basements, this is a walkout, meaning that where the body and the tire tracks are on the north side is a slope down. Where the van is at below the grade level and glass doors that lead out of the basement. He will explain the distance of the tire tracks. He will explain the distance from the house of the body and go over the scene in detail for you. You will also hear that on January 9th and 10th, James Shinsky is hired by the defendant's insurance company to conduct an investigation, their own investigation into the fire. He has a background as a fire investigator. He then does recorded interviews of with Linda Stermer on January 9th and January 10th. You're going to start hearing as people start digging in to the questions, start asking more questions, start going into the things that don't make sense, the explanations that the defendant starts giving, and how the story grows and changes. It's going to start here. That's her third statement. You are going to hear, I expect to present to you, Dave Hayhurst and Ann Hunt. They are both, Dave Hayhurst is with the Michigan State Police Laboratory, and Ann Hunt used to be and is now retired. They're going to talk to you about that van that was found in the walkout level in the backyard, that was driven by the defendant that day of the fire. They're going to talk about the multiple points that they examined, the evidence that was scraped from underneath the van, and how they evaluated it and where it was found, and the results that is determined to be the blood of Todd Stermer. You're also going to hear that the defendant's purse is found in Todd Stermer's van in the front passenger area of that van. You are going to hear testimony from Troy Ernst, another scientist at the Michigan State Police Laboratory. He tested the clothing that was seized from Todd Stermer that day, and he tested for accelerants. You will hear his lab reports. January 15th, James Shinsky starts conducting his own fire investigation. During this investigation, he seizes several rags from the washer in the basement of the Stermer residence. These are collected by Mr. Shinsky and sent to a private laboratory for testing. We expect to present evidence to you from Craig Belliette. He's the chemist for Baker and Herbert Laboratories. He's also now retired. Many folks have retired since 2007. And he conducted an analysis of those rags that were seized from that washer by Jane Shinsky.
Your Honor.
What's the date on that last slide?
Let's see if I can go back here.
Okay.
January 26th, Mr. Ballier. On February 27th, Steve Willison, who's an attorney for Farm Bureau Insurance, also becomes involved. So again, part of the fire insurance investigation. Defendant sits for an examination under oath at the request of her insurance company. The plot starts to thicken. The statements start to become more descriptive. Change. You'll hear how everything starts changing. Blame starts continue to change. Linda gives a statement again about what happened on January 7th. And at that time, she implicitly denies having an extramarital affair. October 18th, several months now after the fire, it's still in 2007, Steve Willison sits with the defendant again for a second examination under oath. Talks to her again about the events of January 7th. They go over the details. They go over what doesn't make sense, what's not adding up. More questions are asked. More digging is done. Things don't make sense. I'm asking, as the evidence is presented, to focus on her statements. You will also hear from additional witnesses. Kate Fox is going to come in near the end. She was the former friend, actually best friend of Linda Stermer. You're going to hear the statements that Ms. Stermer made to Kate Fox. Mr. Williams, Chris Williams, is going to come in. He's going to talk to you about how he started his extramarital affair with the defendant, knew she was married, knew her from work, 6 to 8 months prior to the fire. You're also going to hear from Kathy Ilg, another friend of the defendant, and statements that she made to Kathy. You're going to hear from Kim and Ken Thompson. They were also neighbors close by, not direct neighbors, but close by. They were actually on scene that day. They will tell you what they saw, what they heard, what the defendant said immediately after the fire in those days. You'll hear from Annette Crandall. She was also on scene on January 7th. You'll hear more statements that Linda made to her. At the end of the trial, you're going to hear from Trenton Stermer, Trevor Stermer, and Corey Pierce. All three are the sons of Todd and Linda Stermer. They were teenagers at the time of this fire. Now they're grown men. They're going to come in and talk to you. They're going to explain what it was like to live in the Stermer household, what the dynamics were, what the relationships were. They're going to talk to you about what happened that morning, the night before, to give you an insight as to what occurred in the hours preceding this fire. This trial is going to be a lot of it's going to be about the evolution of Linda Stermer's statements. As people ask more and more questions to try to get to the root of what happened, to understand, to figure out what really went on. Just in the process of asking more questions, you're going to hear statements, how they change about the home life. You're going to hear statements that actually change about what happened in the morning of the fire. You're going to hear statements change about where Linda Stermer even exited the home, the most basic details. What door did you go out? You're going to hear her statements. You're going to hear her changing statements of what she observed. What did you see? Where was the fire? What did you see? And you're also going to hear a lot of missing details that may be shown by other evidence and that we expect to show you. Particularly important are the statements about running Todd Stermer over with the van. Statements about never seeing the defendant. Statements about why. Why would you drive to the back of the house on a walkout basement? Why? You'll hear them. At the end of this trial, ladies and gentlemen, all the boxes that we painstakingly went through in the beginning of this opening statement will be checked. And I am going to ask all of you to render a guilty verdict on counts 1 and count 2. Thank you very much.
Mr. Defense, care to give an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Again, I want to thank you all for participating in this process we have in America. You are a very essential fiber to the blanket of rights that was embedded in the very doctrine that we all stand on and live with in these United States of America. And I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time, but this case is about a family. It's about an American family. It's about is to own a home, to own some property, to raise a family, and do the things that you love to do independently of anyone else. A family nucleus. The Stermer family was an American family. Marriage created an opportunity for them to grow together, an opportunity for them to purchase some land. On 2 occasions, a family castle. Mr. Todd Stermer was very talented in reference to his skill sets of putting things together. And they set out on this journey, him, Linda, and the children. They were going to build what they wanted to build on a lot of land that they could hunt, fish, be apart from anyone else, and have fun on their property. But it wasn't a totally isolated area. It was in the township of Lawrence, where most people have the same dream and desire to have some property, some space, to have the horses or the cattle or whatever pets. And it was the same thing with the Stermer family. They had horses, had dogs, cats, and had the vision of having many other things. They maintained their property themselves with all the natural and necessary machinery that goes with maintaining a large space of property. And so as the construction began, got to a point where they realized that we built this enough we can live, even though it's not completed totally on the inside. All the build out wasn't completed, but it was enough to satisfy the occupancy for them. And they would continue the finishing of this project. And they didn't put a lot of money in a lot of fancy things. They lived in a common way. They didn't have a bunch of fancy cars. So stated the most important focus was the children, the school, their property, and the things that they enjoy amongst themselves. And in a township where the motto is, we grow together. And even though these neighbors live far apart, they all knew each other. And so on January the 7th, 2007, very unfortunate tragedy occurred. On that morning, Miss Stermer and Mr. Stermer, he's upstairs in his space, and Miss Stermer is doing standard household chores. She's down in the lower part of the house, and the children are gone to the movies. Give you any misdirected assumptions. But yes, it's all families. They had some problems from time to time. And you always pray for more good days than bad days. And even the bad days, we work them out. We try to work them out. And on this day, there was a conversation in reference to working out some family matters. And sometimes you don't want your children to be privy to some of the conversations that adults need to address as it relates to the totality of the family, including the children. Sometimes that could elevate up to separation, divorce. But these things are what should be discussed among adults, not in the children. And so that was the reason why to talk about some family to the children to be privy to. And so it's back to Miss Stermer and Mr. Johnson. There wasn't any fighting and some arguments. Nothing physical. Nobody threatening anyone. As a matter of fact, Ms. Stermer had earlier that day went to one of the local convenience stores. Got for the car, a few items, back home. And she's her husband. And of all the things, she hears a scream that she's never heard before. A very scratching scream. And she runs upstairs, and as she gets to the top of the stairs, all she can see is fire All she can see is her husband on fire. What could it be like to run to a door and see nothing but a cup of flames and a human body that you can't get to? All sources of communication was in that room. Her cell phone. She had no way of calling anyone. And in a state of total panic and trauma, she runs down and she gets out of the house for the sole purpose of trying to go and seek aid, help. My husband is on fire. She gets outside. It's cold, had rained, had snowed. The terrain around the house was not concrete. And therefore, she jumps in the van, a 1993 Ford. This is 2007. It's not a 2005. It's not 2006. It's a 1993 Ford. She jumps in the van, and after she gets in the van, she tries to maneuver out of the drive. Then she sees Mr. Stermer. Some kind of magical way, he had maneuvered out of the house on fire. And he was on fire. But when he got out of the house, she sees him, she gets out of the van, and she goes over to him. Body, the skin from our coming off. She tries to pick him up, and she can't maneuver that. And so she tries to get him in a comfort place to just stay until she can get back in the van. As she attempts to leave, she doesn't look down on the ground in some kind of way because of the involuntary body. His body is positioned in a way in which when she attempts to drive out and back up and go forward, his body is up under the center of the span. By this time, the evidence that one of these very dear neighbors, several had seen smoke in the sky, had called 911. By the time one of the neighbors arrived, she was totally traumatized, and they said, "Where are the children?" Evidence will show finally advised the children was not in the house because everybody was concerned about who else was in the house. They could see the ball of smoke from a far distance apart. No first responders. Wow. The first people that are on the scene are all Major was a doctor. Not on duty, but he was a doctor. He arrived. You hear the evidence that there was a Mr. Matheny and his significant other, Miss Calhoun. They arrived. Because of his condition, they all was trying to figure out a way to provide some degree of comfort. And Mr. Matheny, who was a mechanic, opened his trunk and he had a lot of work clothes in his trunk. And he laid them on top of Mr. Stermer for some comfort. And the facts will show that where he was now positioned, there was a fuel furnace that was part of the heating system of the house that had been installed by the family, Mr. Stermer, as part of the building. Several individuals was concerned that this fuel furnace was going to explode. And so when the very first responder arrived, they decided to pick Mr. Stermer up and put him in a small little boat and move him far distance from the house. And all at the same time, they're continuing to call in to 911, telling them, get somebody out here quick. And so when the first responders, supposed the ambulance arrived, they did all they could do. But there's one part of this But you have to understand the trauma that Miss Stermer was going through at this time. When they were calling 911, they're at the scene. There's a voice. And in no shape, form, or fashion that a human mind could assume that this could be a fake voice or a voice to cover something up. Can we hear the voice?
What?
January 7th, 2007. Oh my God. Okay, well, that's perfect. I'm going to what's your name, please? My name is Stermer's house. Linda Stermer? Yes, oh my God, she got right. I don't know if people did it. Oh my God. She did upside down? She did upside down. She's screaming something to my boyfriend. Okay. Can you see what she's screaming? I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to hear it out. I don't know where she is yet. She's freaking out. Oh my God. She's going to tell me something. Are you able to go outside with your cell phone and see? Yes. We just want to know if anybody's inside or not. Is there anybody inside? Is there? Oh my God. Calm down. You guys are perfect on the way there, okay? Someone has to tell you. I need you to calm down so you can help me. Okay, just calm down so you can help me. Do you know how many people are inside? She doesn't know this. Where's your husband at? Can I talk to him? What's your husband's name? What's your husband's name? Is your husband inside your house? Okay, can I talk to your husband, please? Can you do the phone to your husband? Sure. No one is in the house.
From that point on, this whole tragic event has destroyed a life, it's destroyed a family, and we will be able to show you that the destruction from this fire, that there was a duty
This
and obligation for several
another
individuals
bar.
to do what was necessary to determine the origin and the cause of the fire. And that there is absolutely nothing through the totality of this investigation that puts any weapon in the hands of Linda Stermer. The links were never there. From this point, the investigation started with one person is alive and one person succumbed to the fire, and therefore one person must be the cause of the fire. That one person would be the person that they can talk to. And that's not the way it was supposed to be. The evidence will show that there was an accidental fire in a house, in a room that had burning candles, that had burning lamps, oil lamps, that had a fireplace, and that the location of where the fire started and how it began to grow was in the same room where Mr. Stermer was. Not where Miss Stermer was, because she was down in the lower part of the house doing laundry and chores. And they started their investigation with this rush to judgment. We are going to make something because we think, we have hunches. And what they did was, as she stated, when they arrived, one person decides that I'm just going to take the pants off of this individual that is lying here suffering and taking his last breaths. What little he's got on, with a burned up body, I'm going to take his pants off because I think I smell an accelerant. And the pants that got tested, their laboratory say it came back with an accelerant. Don't say where the accelerant came from. But we will show that this oil furnace that was installed by Mr. Stermer is part of their heating system in the house, along with the fireplaces, that the oil furnace had some problems. And that from time to time, the oil furnace had to be bled. And so in bleeding the oil furnace, Mr. Stermer had done that the day before. And he had used some of the towels in the house. And these towels were left down in front of the. And so accelerant in reference to household issues and needs on the outside was a common activity of use. I'm going to tell you about a gasoline can. And on this property, they probably had 6 gasoline cans. Because what do you use gasoline for if you own a farm? Every machinery you have is oil and gasoline, petroleum, and any one of those is combustible, right? Can start a fire. Sometimes with a match, and sometimes without. But the facts will be, for sure, that the cause of the fire was not by a human act, but it was clearly because of some flaw that existed in the upper part of the house. So they take his pants. But what you will also know, that this very same day, evening, and moment after that 911 call that you heard, and when the first responders arrived, and Van Buren County Sheriff's offices arrived, you're going to know what happened was that they told Miss Stermer, "Can we have your clothes?" Now, evidence will show that she has laid down on top of her husband, begging and pleading, "Don't leave me." She has his blood on her clothes, hugging and embracing him. She had previously tried to pick him up. And they say, when they realized that Mr. Stermer is not, it was now time for the coroner's office. But they told Miss Stermer, "Can we have your clothes? Come get in the ambulance." And one of the dear friends who lives in the neighborhood, in the area, had showed up also on the scene. Says, all her clothes in the ambulance, gave them to Van Buren County officer. And the evidence will show that after they receive her clothes and she's able to put some clothes on that's brought to her from a friend's house, that they test these clothes, her clothes. She cooperated 100%. She didn't say, "You don't have a warrant? Am I under arrest? I don't need a warrant. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to find out what happened." But you wouldn't think that you'd be the immediate one, to the point that at this point of your life, and you being totally traumatized and experiencing this wretched incident that's taken everything from you, your castle, your husband, your children's father. "You want my clothes, but I'm going to give you my clothes." They take those clothes. They have them chemically, forensically analyzed. And the evidence will show that when the test came back, there was zero of any scintilla of any type of accelerant.
Silica? That's not a word. Scintilla. You mean scintilla?
And an interesting twist about all of this now is that we're thinking that this should be investigated by law enforcement. But all of a sudden, here comes the insurance people. And the evidence will show that Ms. Stermer didn't even know if their insurance was paid up on the house. There had been some financial issues. Things had gotten behind from time to time. But Mr. Stermer was in control of managing those affairs for the house. And the insurance people, they tell Ms. Stermer that no, your insurance was not paid up. But if you will go downtown and write a check to the insurance agent, we will consider your insurance back in force. And that's what she did. And then the insurance people, they started doing what they do. And many times what they do is to see how much money they can keep from paying out on a claim. And so they started this investigation of just trying to interrogate, take depositions, twist questions upside down so they could get the narrative that they wanted. And at the end of the day, they get their narrative. So they come out to the house 2 days after the fire, tell Ms. Stermer, meet us out to your property. Don't have the decency to say, come to our office. This lady is now homeless. The children are homeless. All the belongings are gone. But the courtesy that's extended to her for the insurance is that I'm going to drive out to your property that's been burned down, and I'd like for you to meet me. And she cooperates. Her mother, one of her friends, the insurance person says, we need to talk to you. They put her in their car, and that's where they conduct their interview. And then that's not enough, so they come back another day and do the same thing at the property, in the car. And Ms. Stermer has cooperated 100% with them through this whole process. Hasn't delayed, didn't do anything but whatever they asked her to do. And so that's within the first weeks, 3 weeks and months. And then all of a sudden they started providing some financial relief, temporary under the policy. And then what's more tragic about this is, she said this happened January the 7th of 2007. The destruction continued for almost 2 years before any charges were filed. They went on every degree of a witch hunt that you can imagine. Every person that knew Miss Linda Stermer, they went and talked to. It was so grotesque that they even started looking at Mr. Stermer, the deceased, as the cause, maybe, of the fire. But what they never did was a true investigation for the origin and the cause of the fire. And the evidence will show that because of the fact that they can never and did never try to make any attempt to determine the cause of the fire, they have absolutely nothing that they can put in the hands of Miss Linda Stermer as causing the arson or the fire. Therefore, there is absolutely nothing of an element that they can meet of an arson. Talk about an affair. Talk about some disgruntled friend. Talk about somebody that had a dispute with you, that don't like you. And you're going to use that and connect that to say, okay, we can go all the way back to 2 years ago, and we can make this show that, yeah, she committed this fire. They go as far as when they do arrest Miss Stermer, they put her in jail, and they put her in jail with other females. And shortly after she's in jail, the evidence will show they start pulling people out of the jail. You know this Stermer lady? You in the cell with her? Did she tell you anything about her husband? Did she tell you anything about what happened, why she's in jail? Yeah, she says, I'm in jail because they accused me of burning my house down, and my husband died, and so they charged me with murder and arson. But every last one of these people that they spend a whole lot of time interviewing in the jail, every last one of them give them a different narrative of what they think they want to hear. And we call those people jailhouse snitches. But I'll leave you with this. Every last one of us is blessed to have the rights that we have in America. Accusations are accusations. But that fiber that I talked about earlier, that presumption of innocence, that beyond a reasonable doubt, those are some very, very strong threads that we get to wear every day. In this case, throughout the duration of this trial, you won't hear nothing from the defense other than the fact that there is no direct evidence, there is no circumstantial evidence And the beauty of all of that is that the law states that you can't convict someone on conjecture. You can't convict someone on speculation. You can't convict someone because somebody didn't like the way she talked. You can't convict someone on somebody that you think that they was having some type of look or an affair or a conversation with another person under any shape, form, or fashion in America. That's not our society. That's not our foundation. Our foundation is what it's supposed to be, and you have the evidence that we're going to present in the defense of Linda Stermer. That justice shall prevail for this lady who's had to suffer through all of this since that day of January 2007. And you will bring back what is fair and what is just under the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of this state, and the laws that are so embedded in each one of our lives. Thank you.
We'll take our morning break. We're going to take about a 15-minute break. Please remember the admonitions we went through before, no discussing the case with each other. Anybody else? Do not get any news reports that may come your way. Someone pops up on your phone, for example, could be
We have a ceiling register to look at in this trial. Yay. So I wonder what they told the jury, or if they told the jury anything about why the trial is in 2025 and the death happened in 2007. Because I'm pretty sure they can't tell them that she was convicted before. Some of the things that he was talking about, I didn't mention. There was one woman that testified that she had an affair, and that she had told her that she was going to leave Todd, or that she was going to kill Todd, like all kind of things that backed up the state's story. And it turned out that this is one of the reasons why her case, one of the little parts and pieces that caused her case to get overturned. This woman's brother got on the stand, and I guess he was a witness for the defense, got on the stand and said that his sister was mentally ill and she lied, and she would lie to get what she wanted. And apparently this woman worked with Linda, and Linda had changed her work schedule or something, and so she was mad at her about that. And so that was her way of getting back at her. I don't think that's exactly a fair trade, but you changed my work schedule, so I'm going to go testify, get you, and send you to prison for the rest of your life. So that was what he was talking about, the testimony of a friend that was mad at you or whatever. That's what he was talking about. And then the affair was, what the woman testified to was that she had an affair with a coworker. Well, that coworker actually testified that yes, they did have an affair. So, and I find it, hold on. I'm coming, dear. I'm coming. I'm coming. And I found it interesting when he talked about, or when the prosecution talked about her changing her story, because on the 48 hours episode, they asked her if she loved her husband, and she said, "Oh, yes, yes, I loved him. I don't know a time when I didn't love him. As soon as I met him, I just knew he was the one for me." And then later in the episode, she's like, "Are you having an affair?" And she's like, I can't remember what she, I mean, she answered yes, but not, she didn't come out and say yes. She spun it like, she made it to be not as big of a deal as it was. I can't remember what her exact words were. But, oh, I loved him. I loved him so much. I can't remember a time when I didn't love him, but then, yes, I was having an affair. So that's when she said about her changing her stories. That's what came to mind. But, and they also said on the 48 hours episode that in the past he has committed arson to, for like insurance fraud. So, and then the defense attorney just said that they even went as so far as to say that maybe Todd started the fire, and apparently they were not in great financial shape. So that is a possibility that he could have started the fire himself for the insurance money. But if he takes care of the bills and the insurance wasn't paid up, that wouldn't make sense that he would do that. And this is the first time I heard this: candles and an oil lamp and a fireplace. Who does all three of those at the same time? Seriously. Why? Why do you need so much fire in your house? Seriously. When I was a kid, I still have one somewhere. I don't use it, but it's an antique now, so I have it. Um, we have a kerosene lamp that I inherited from my mother, and it's an antique. She's had it since she was a kid. It's the lamp she used to do her homework by when she was a kid before they had electricity. Let me go get him in. So when I was a kid, my mom brought out these gorgeous kerosene lamps and put them all around the house. I only have one. I don't know what happened to all the other ones. I guess maybe my dad only gave me the one, and I don't know where the other ones went. Anyway, um, and I was always afraid of them. I guess my mom did that on purpose. Like, don't, be careful, don't knock it over, whatever, which caused a fear of them in me because I'm like afraid. What, did it go under the stove? It went under the stove. His cookie went under the stove. I should go get him another cookie. He'll still bark at that one. It's not going to come out just because you're barking at it. Hang on. Well, why did you push it under the stove for? Or were they in the oven? Silly boy. So, yeah, I don't know why. So we do like candles. I'm still a little afraid of candles, but actually, candles are probably more dangerous than a kerosene lamp. And he's still barking to get the one out from underneath the stove. Yeah. What? It's gone, buddy. It's underneath the stove with all the dust bunnies and everything. You don't want to eat it now. No, you don't want to eat it now. He's going to drive me crazy until I find a way to get that cookie out from underneath the stove. Spike. Great. I have doomed myself to a day of being barked at. I gave you a cookie. Forget about the one under the stove. Why did you push it under there? So I mean, I get why they they said she needed like an arson inspector on her defense team. That was the main reason why her conviction got overturned. And she asked her lawyer for one, and her lawyer said, "No, we don't need one. We will just present our case with their expert by cross-examining it." But apparently that was not good enough. So, but she had no accelerant on her at all, and they said that the fire inspector or expert or whatever that that the daughter hired said that she would have accelerant on her. Even if she was really careful, she would still, there's no way to prevent it. She would have gotten something on her clothes. Even just a trace amount would have gotten on her. What if she put something protective over her clothing? Or what if she changed clothes after she doused it? If she knocked him out first, like her sons say, I don't know how her sons knew, they weren't there. But her sons say she knocked him out first. So if she knocked him out, then doused him and he didn't wake up, and then that gave her time to change clothes before she started the fire, she wouldn't have had it on it, any trace of it on her. I'm playing devil's advocate here, I guess. Sounds good. I just think that that's my just on. Because she's the only one with bad sound. And they turned the sound off as soon as I said that. So this trial is supposed to last 2 weeks, and I felt like I was not doing you guys a service by just ignoring the new stuff that was coming out while we waited. And since April 1st is next Tuesday and they still have to pick a jury and everything, I figured we would probably have time to finish this, especially since after they pick the jury for Karen Reed, they're probably not going to get started right away because they're waiting on that decision. So I hope I didn't mess up by starting this one. But if it ends up going longer, we can always go to Karen Reed and then watch it. We'll go to work.
Thank you, Your Honor. People call Sandra Stermer to the stand, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Please have a seat. Do you want the hearing assessed?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to make sure I hear what
Yes.
Ben said.
Is that good?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yes. And then you can move the microphone. It's easier to move that than that heavy chair. So you can move that closer to your mouth so that you can hear you.
Okay.
And we'll start by having you tell us your full name and spelling the last, please.
Sandra K. Stermer, Stermer.
Thank you. Ms. Evans.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Stermer, did you know Todd Stermer?
Yes,
How did you know Todd?
he is my son.
And do you know Linda Stermer?
Yes,
And how do you know her?
she was my daughter-in-law.
And how long were Todd and Linda married?
I think 13 years.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I maybe move your microphone down a little bit? There you go.
Better? Okay. I think 13 years. They were together longer than that.
Do you know how long they were together before they got married?
Well, they had 2 kids. Trace, so a couple of years, 2. Trace might have been 2 or 3 when they got married.
A couple of years, and then they were married about 13.
Yeah.
And what was your relationship with Linda like during the marriage?
It was okay.
What was your relationship like with your son?
It was great. He was a good son. I loved him.
Had you been to their house, the new house that they built on County Road 215?
Oh, wait a minute. I'm not hearing very good here. What was it?
Had you been to their house that they were building on County Road
Oh, yes.
215
Mhm.
many times?
Yes.
And at the time of the fire, can you describe to the jury kind of what the state of the house was, or?
It was still a work in progress, but the chimney was done, bedrooms. It was very livable. Nice kitchen.
Did they have floor coverings? Like carpet and?
I don't think there was any carpet. I think it was just wood floor, but I won't swear to that. It's been a long time.
A lot of years. So who was building the house?
Todd was, he'd get help when he needed help, and his brother helped him quite a bit, a lot of friends. He had a lot of friends.
Had he built things before in the past?
What now?
Had he done building or remodeling in the past?
He was very, very handy, could figure out most any kind of carpenter work, plumbing, electrical. He'd worked with an electrical contractor at one part where he was in an internship for quite a while. I was hoping maybe he'd stick with that, but he likes his independence. So
So you said he built most of the house himself, but then contracted out other parts?
Yeah, there was parts of it that was contracted out, yes.
Do you know who was living in the home at the time of the fire?
Todd, Linda, Trevor, Trenton, and Corey.
And who are Trevor, Trenton, and Corey?
Trevor and Trenton are Linda and Todd's sons, and Corey is Linda's nephew.
And did Todd treat Corey as a nephew
Corey.
or?
No, he treated him like a son. He was a son to him. And we figured he's my grandson. I mean, I don't normally even say anything different except Todd's 3 sons.
And had Todd and Linda raised Corey from a young age?
2. He was only like 2 when they, so.
Todd died on January 7th of 2007, right?
Yes.
And when did you see him last prior to the fire?
The Friday before.
So that was on a Sunday, so you saw him the Friday before? And what happened on that Friday?
Well, my other son had given me $100 gift card to go to Red Lobster, so I invited Todd and the boys to come in. It was going to start school the next week. And I said, if they came in, I'd buy them lunch or Brad would buy us all lunch at Red Lobster. And so they did. And we had a nice lunch and good time. They were in good moods.
So you had the 3 boys and you and Todd?
Yes.
Anyone else?
Linda was working, so she wouldn't have been excluded if she'd have been.
And what was, Todd, you said everybody had a good time?
Yes, we did. He had been to a doctor earlier in the day for an ear infection. And so the boys drove in and then he came after his appointment. And that was it. We just chatted and talked, beginning of school and whatever was happening.
What was Todd's mood?
Todd was in a very good mood that day.
In spite of the ear infection?
Yeah, he was. I remember him smiling and laughing and joking with the kids. So,
Any discussion about anything bad going on?
he didn't tell me anything bad going on. No.
If there would have been something bad going on, did you have the type of relationship where he would have discussed it with you?
He would have eventually, but he probably wouldn't have brought it up right then at lunch. But anyway, so he would have probably tried to talk to me in private rather than,
Instead of in front of the boys?
Yeah.
Were you aware of any problems that Todd and Linda were experiencing in their marriage?
As far as, no, nobody told me anything. That I didn't think it was turning into a very good relationship by then. Just more tension between the 2 of them. That Thanksgiving, he came to Thanksgiving, him and the 3 boys came to where we were all at family-wise, and she went with the girls someplace else. So that's holidays like that where it was getting iffy with whether they'd both be coming together or not.
And traditionally, are holidays a big thing in your family?
Yes.
And usually everybody comes together?
They usually come together, yes.
Did Todd, was he a physically fit man at the time of his death?
Yes, he had very little body fat. He was in good shape. He wanted to play sports all the time and he couldn't do anything. At that age, he was 42, that he played 110%. He was very active.
Did he get involved in any coaching?
He coached, yes, his kids, he coached a whole lot. And a lot of people, and Lawrence and everything really, there's always going to be the naysayer, but most of them all liked him and the kids liked him. He loved kids and he was good with them.
Did he have any physical limitations?
No, he'd had a couple of knee surgeries from skiing and whatever sports things, but it didn't seem to slow him down much.
No. So you didn't notice that it slowed him down when he had those knee
No,
surgeries?
no. He was still out running bases and playing basketball, so.
Even after his surgeries?
Yeah, oh yeah.
When did you first hear about the fire?
Sunday night, later in the afternoon.
Later in the afternoon?
Evening, actually, it was evening.
And when you heard about it, what did you do?
After I talked to the detective, my sister was over there at my house and we got in the car and drove out to Lawrence.
And did you actually get to go to the house?
We didn't go to the house. I drove down by the house and then we found out that Linda and the boys were at a neighbor's house. And so we went over there.
So you went with the boys? Okay. And so did you ever go out to the scene that day?
Not that, I mean, I saw it from the road.
Okay.
But the driveway was a mess and the fire trucks were still in there and there was police and I couldn't go down. I mean, I don't know what I could have seen if I'd have went down there, really.
And so then, did you have an opportunity, well, where did the boys go after the fire?
They were at this neighbor's house. I don't remember his name now, but he had come over after the fire and then and Linda and the boys are all there by then. Ashley had come, her daughter. And
Who's Ashley?
Ashley?
Yeah, who's Ashley?
Linda's daughter.
Okay. Was she
By
living?
her first marriage. What?
Okay. Was she living in the house at the time?
I don't believe she was. No, she wasn't living there. She might have stayed there some of the time, but she wasn't living there.
Okay. And after the fire, did Linda and the boys live with you?
No, I was in a one-bedroom apartment. They spent that night with me and most of the next day and whatever, but then they moved out back to Lawrenceville. They were going to go back to school.
Okay. Did you talk to Linda about what had happened?
I tried, yes.
So do you remember the first time that you tried talking to her about what happened?
Yeah. I asked what happened. Right? Basically, she said she was in the basement and doing laundry, and that Todd hollered at her to get out or something. There was 3 different stories that I heard within 2 days about how she got out of the house. So I'm not really, they kind of mix up in my head now after 18 years. But one of them was that she went out through the slider and ran around the house and tried to get in the front door, and there was too much fire. Then she told me another time that she came up the stairs and there was too much. And so she went back down now. And then the third one was she got up there, but she couldn't get in the living room where Todd was at. And so she went out through the front door.
So when you say the slider door, what door was that?
In the basement, it was a walkout basement with,
Did she tell you where Todd was at the time?
Well, she said it, first of all, she told me, he was in the living room and he was on fire. So.
And she told you he was in the living room when she saw
and then
him?
I got to remember, we'd get just to a certain point and then she'd start getting all hysterical or whatever. So I'd just back off. I wasn't being confrontational anyway. I just wanted to know what happened.
So the first time you said that she said she was in the basement, did she say what she was doing in the basement?
Said she was doing laundry.
And did she tell you where Todd was at that time?
But he wasn't feeling good and he was upstairs.
Did she tell you anything about a fire in the fireplace?
Yes, she said there was a fight. He was sitting in his chair up there and had a fire in the fireplace.
And then she said, I believe, I just want to be clear, you said that she yelled, or that she heard Todd yell something?
To for her to get out at one time, that was one thing she told me. So,
And then she tried to get up the steps, and that was when she couldn't get out?
well, like I said, she told me 3 different ways she got out of the house. So I don't know which time was which.
So the time that she said she didn't get up the stairs, did she say why she didn't get up the
Says
stairs?
there was too much smoke and flame.
And did she say if she saw Todd at that time? Is that a no?
No, I'm sorry.
So she said she didn't see Todd, or didn't
I
she
don't
tell
think
you
she
anything?
said she got, because I don't think she could get up there far enough, supposedly, to see.
And then she said at one time that she went upstairs and she saw him, right?
Yes.
And then what door did she say she went out at that time?
She went out through the front.
The front door, which would have been in the house?
Yes.
Okay.
There was also another exit off the kitchen. She never used that, but there's a lot of ways out of the house.
Was the exit off the kitchen, what side, was that on the side of the house, the back of the house, the front of the house?
The one in the kitchen?
Yeah, the exit.
Was toward the back of the house. It was like off the kitchen in the back of the house.
And that would have been, the door
And I
would have
don't
gone.
think there was any steps there, but I think that must be the way Todd got out.
Well, and I'm not going to ask you about that because
Yeah,
obviously you
no,
weren't there,
I-
right?
Yeah.
So she said, so one time she said that she went out the front door. Did she say she saw Todd that time?
You know,
House is on fire. Don't worry if there's no steps. Jump.
Susan, I mean, I can't tell you which one time she told me what. I mean, they were all right together. It was like one day she told me 2 different ways that she tried to get out or did get out, and then another way that she got out. So it's all here. I mean, you know.
Yeah. And then I just want to be clear, then one time she said she didn't see Todd and one time she said she did see Todd.
I'm sure she told me she saw Todd.
And you said that those all happened within how many days from the fire? Those 3 different accounts.
At the day of and the next day.
So between those 2 days,
Yeah, and I quit asking.
did you ever talk to her about the van and driving the van? No? Did she ever tell you why she was driving the van?
Said she didn't have a phone.
Did she ever tell you, or did you ever ask if she saw Todd outside?
I didn't, because I won't elaborate. I didn't.
And she never said anything about that. Was there a time that you were talking to her in those 2 days where you were at Kate Swift's house?
No, that was later.
That was later. So how much later was that?
Probably within a week, because Brad was, and Kelly, I think, with me.
So who's Brad?
My son,
Your son.
other son.
And that'd be Todd's brother?
Yes.
And what was the conversation with Linda? What did Linda say at that conversation with Brad and at Kate Swift's house?
Well, and went off to the basement or the bathroom, and I just followed her in, but she didn't say anything.
So as soon as she was questioned, she began to hyperventilate and became hysterical and didn't
Yeah.
want to talk.
Yeah.
Did Linda ever talk to you about her marriage?
I mean, if she did, it would have been to complain about something, but,
On those conversations after the fire, did she ever talk to you about her filing for divorce or wanting a divorce?
not to me.
Did you know any of Todd and Linda's financial status?
Not good, pretty shaky.
And how did you know that?
Well, I lent them some money.
How much money?
Do I have to say?
Was it over $20,000?
Yes.
And during the course of their marriage, how many times did you have to lend them money?
Well, I worked together, on different things. I wanted to make sure they had a house to live in, for one thing. So I would sometimes bail him out make sure he had a payment. And he was very good about paying me back. It's just at the end here, when he was working really hard, trying to get the house done, I lent him the larger sum. And I had no doubt he would have just kept paying until he paid it back. I never thought he'd ever wouldn't.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Ms. Stermer.
Good morning, Ms. Stermer.
Good morning. What is this thing? I'm hearing noises coming from behind me here. From this, I guess. Well, maybe if I just,
Was it the noise of this moving this?
it's weird. What now?
Are you hearing it now,
Yeah,
the noise?
can you hear it?
No? Well, we'll try a different headset for you.
Sorry. I don't know how this one goes.
Under your chin. Sound okay?
We'll see. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Let's see, let's do your turn.
Good morning, Ms. Stermer. Can you hear me?
Hi, good morning. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll be brief, Ms. Stermer. You stated that your son was very, very skilled in building. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And he had been an apprentice. Is that I understand?
He was a apprentice for an electrician.
Okay.
You know, I'm sorry, can we move your microphone down again?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, pull that microphone down.
Okay.
Right there. See the microphone? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that.
There's sound issues in here.
I'm electronically challenged.
But you, apprentice for an electrician, is that right?
Yes, he was. And he also, he just was one of those guys that could look at a blueprint and he'd measure and he just was a perfectionist along those lines. He'd remodeled a couple of houses along the way and that he'd sold, and he'd learned. He was a smart kid.
Well, was this the first house that you
that he built from scratch.
that he built from scratch. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
And you're very proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, I was always proud of my sons anyway, all daughters and whatever. But yes, I was proud of him.
So when he told you that he was going to build this first house from scratch, did you help him financially in reference to the?
Not right at first. I mean,
Okay.
it was later on he got, when he was getting into the closing stuff, and he'd already put a lot of money into it that
Okay.
he had, that I helped him out some.
Had you ever spent the night at the new house that he built?
Did I?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. But you know the geographics of the house on the inside? You did?
Yes, I'd been out there a lot.
Okay. Okay. He was upstairs.
I was probably upstairs only about once because I had both hips replaced.
Right, okay.
Stairs are a little challenge.
Yes, I understand. But he had a fireplace. Did he ever express to you which part of the house was more passionate to him than the other?
No, not to me.
Okay. Okay. When you were speaking with Linda right after the unfortunate demise of your son, was she still hysterical to you as far as processing the whole incident?
She pretty much, when we got back to the apartment, I gave her my room. We just went in there and stayed in there, and I was out in the living room with the boys. And so.
And the lunch that you son and your grandsons y'all had, the only reason why Linda wasn't there is because she was at work.
They said she was at work or she was doing something. I mean, she worked periodically. She worked at different jobs. And she did a lot with a lot of horses. And say that they,
You know about the horses?
the horses.
Yes.
I knew something about the horses, yes.
Big pardon?
What?
I
I
see.
knew about the horses.
You knew about those. Okay. So would it be fair to say that your son or Linda, they didn't use you as a sounding board for any family affairs, right?
No, Pratt. I know Todd. I had talked to Todd at different times. We used to ride to ball games a lot. His kids were real active, and I tried to go to as much as I could. And he had trying to get my thoughts straight. Anyway, he said he found out some things, but I don't think I ought to bring them up here. I mean, about whatever, about their marriage. I mean, he found out that she hadn't told him the exact truth about a lot of things before they got married.
Before they got married.
Yeah.
Okay.
And after they were married, a few more things popped up, whatever. But he was trying. He just told me he was going to try, and he wanted to be the best husband he could be. So he was going to stick with it, and didn't want to be a weekend dad. And that's where we pretty much left it. He didn't come and cry to me that Lynn was doing this, that, or the other thing. No, that wouldn't have been him.
Okay.
He would have never. He would, if they were really getting a divorce, he would have come to me and told me eventually that, well, we're getting a divorce. And I probably would have heard over that weekend, actually, if she was really leaving. So I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Stermer.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. When the house that Todd built had a basement level, right?
And a upper level too,
So
loft or
a
whatever.
loft. So when
That's what I'm talking about. Yes. I probably went up to the loft maybe once.
okay. So was it like a loft that overlooked the living room?
It seems like it had stairs going up. It wasn't overlooking anything.
Okay. So you hadn't gone upstairs, meaning the loft.
Right. I had been on the first 2 floors, yes.
So you were on the main level, and is that where the kitchen, the living room, and everything was at on the main level?
We used to, yeah, and like at Christmas, we played cards down in the basement.
So you'd also been in the lower level
Oh,
in
yeah.
the basement.
Yeah,
So really the only level you didn't go to was the loft.
yeah.
Okay. And I just want to be clear. And I just wanted to touch base. The evening of the fire, you said that you sat with the boys?
Actually, what I remember is sitting on the kitchen floor with Trevor. And we just sat there almost all night.
On the kitchen floor?
Yeah.
What were you doing on the kitchen floor?
Crying and talking and just supporting each other.
And Linda was not involved in this at all?
She was in the bedroom.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any follow-up, Mr. Carter?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jury, do you have any questions of this witness? Or I'll have you raise your hand. No? Okay. Does she excuse from persecuting counsel?
Your Honor, I would ask that she be excused.
Have not closed.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You're not the assistant to take about next time.
Okay, I can get down on it. I'll put it in.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people called Deputy Tony Evans.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Please have a seat, and when you're settled, and you move the microphone away from you now, so we can hear you. Tell us your full name as well as last. Move the microphone easier than this.
Yeah, a little bit easier this way. Tony Evans, EVANS.
Thank you. What is your current occupation?
I'm currently employed at the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office,
And how long have you been there?
over 26 years.
In what capacity were you working with the Van Buren County Sheriff's Department on January 7th of 2007?
I was a K-9 deputy.
You were pardon me, a what?
A K-9 deputy,
K-9 deputy, K-9 meaning you have a dog.
yes.
And were you dispatched to a fire on that day at approximately 3:30 in the afternoon?
I was.
And do you recall the location?
The 66,000 block of County Road 215.
Is that in Lawrence Township,
It is,
Van Buren County, state of Michigan?
yes.
Do you recall approximately how long it took you from the time you were dispatched till the time you got to the property?
About 7 minutes.
And were you the first emergency responder or law enforcement to arrive?
I was the first law enforcement. There was a firefighter, first responder that was there before me,
Do you recall who that was?
Steve Leach.
What did you observe when you first arrived at the home?
So when I pulled in a long dirt driveway, heading back to the west to a 2-story yellow home, I pulled in, it parked off to the right, about 3/4 of the way down. I saw heavy smoke on the north side of the residence. It was going up and a little bit to the north. Then I saw flames on the south side and smoke coming out of the second story windows.
How long was that driveway approximately?
Approximately 250 yards.
Was it a flat driveway? Did it angle up?
If I remember, it had just a little incline going up to it, to the west.
You said that you saw the smoke going up. I think you used your hands in a motion to show going up. Was there any smoke coming out of the sides of the home?
I don't remember any smoke coming out of the sides. I remember coming out of the second floor. It was pretty clear, actually.
So coming down the drive, you could clearly see the sides of the houses?
Yes,
Could you clearly see the yard?
yes.
And you said you saw fire in the second story?
There was fire on the south side of the residence that I could plainly see. There's also some smoke. There was heavy smoke on the north side of the residence.
What were the weather conditions at that time?
When I pulled in there, I don't remember it raining. It was cloudy, a little overcast. Eventually it did start to rain though, sometime down the, I'm not sure the time frame of it when it started to rain, but
Sometime after you
sometime
arrived, it
after I
started to
arrived,
rain?
correct.
And then did the weather change from the rain?
Went from light rain to heavy rain to snow.
And that was later on?
Yes, it was later on.
Would that have been after it was dark?
Remember it raining. So it was about 3:37, 3:46, if I remember correctly.
When you got there, correct?
When I got there, January of that time, I'm not sure exactly what time it got dark out. Obviously it gets dark out earlier in January here in Michigan. So I think it was maybe light out when it started raining as well.
Do you have any problems going down that 250-yard driveway?
I did not.
And then how far down the driveway did you get before you parked?
About 3/4 way down, I parked off facing the north.
And why did you park before the house?
I knew that first responders would be showing up, fire department, so I pulled off that way because it looked like there was only one ingress or egress going to that residence.
And then did you walk then from your car to the residence?
I did.
Do you recall the condition of the driveway as you were walking on it?
It seemed fine to me.
And then as you approached the house, what did you see?
So I saw subjects on the north side of the residence. About 5 people on the north side of the residence. I walked up there and they were attending to Mr. Stermer.
So I want to stop you real quick with on the north side of the property. Can you give the jury an explanation of what the terrain is on the north side and how that house is situated with the terrain?
So terrain wise, it was grass with a slight slope going down. And then it looked like there's maybe a driveway that they used to pull around to the back of the house at some point, but that would have been dirt.
And so then did the terrain go, did it go all the way down to then the lower level?
It dipped down to the west.
And so where were the people that you saw situated in like with that terrain?
About 20, yep, there's a green fuel oil tank that was there. So they're about 20, 25 yards to the north, maybe northwest from there.
And were they on the slope down that you described?
I don't remember being on the slope down, no.
Okay, you know what I mean when I'm talking about the yard sloping down?
Yeah,
Were
we weren't on the slope, no.
Okay, so you
More
were
the
up
flat part,
higher?
yes.
Okay. And do you recall who was on scene there? You said there were several people when you arrived.
Mike Matheny, Connie Calhoun, Steve Leach, who was from the fire department, Dr. Masali, who was a neighbor, and Linda Stermer.
And what did you do then when you first arrived and saw this group of people?
I went over there, noted there that Mr. Stermer was on the ground. I noted Linda Stermer was laying on top of him or on top of him.
I want to stop you there. So she was laying on top of him?
Well, she was on top of him.
And can you describe how she was on top of him?
So he was laying down, and she was, I'd say, knees to the side of him.
Straddling him?
With his head. Can I show you real quick?
Yeah, would that help if you, could you come down and show the jury then how she was?
So he was laying down here on the floor, and then head to here. So he was laying
Here,
down.
she's going to get a microphone, sorry.
So he was laying down on the ground. Say this is him, and there's his head. She had her knees here, and she was down like this on top of him,
And where was his head?
right here.
So she was face to face. Were her legs straddling his body?
No,
So she was to the side of
To
him,
the
but
side.
then face to face with him.
correct.
How close was she to him?
She was on top of him.
Thank you. Thank you. Could you tell at that time if Todd Stermer was still alive?
He did have labored breathing.
And when you say labored breathing, what do you mean by that?
His breathing was shallow.
Shallow? Was he responsive?
No,
Did you hear him say anything?
no, I did not.
What did you observe about Todd Stermer and any injuries?
I know he had burns on his face, his arms. He appeared to be severely burned. His ears, you could see some cartilage on it. He did have a laceration to the back of his head that was bleeding.
And did you see blood anywhere other than the back of his head?
He also had lacerations to the back of him.
Was there any blood on the ground?
Yes.
And where was that blood?
The blood was where he was sitting, where he's laying on the ground.
Was he clothed at that time?
He was not clothed. He did have a pair of sweatpants and his socks on. I'm not sure if he had underwear on at that time, but they were wrapped around his ankles. And there was a plaid, looked like a jacket of some sort that was laying over his private area. There was also other clothes that were bunched up down by his feet.
By his feet?
Yes.
And did you ask, did the defendant, Linda Stermer, what had happened?
I did ask her what happened, and she didn't respond.
Did you ask her if anybody else was in the home?
I did.
Did she respond to that?
After a couple of times, she said no, or she shook her head no, and then said there may be some cats.
What was the defendant doing then when she was on the ground?
She was saying his name, Todd.
Was anyone else attending to Todd at that time?
There was the previous people I spoke of were around him. Dr. Masali was there as well. He was attempting to attend to him as well. At some point, we had to actually take Linda off of Todd and move her so we could do immediate care.
So when you say you had to take her off, what do you mean by that?
Had to hold on to her and physically tell her to get off so we could go ahead and attend to
So
Todd.
that you could do what?
Attend to Todd.
And when you say attend to, do you mean then administer aid?
Administer aid, yes.
And at that point, he still has the labored breathing?
Yes.
Did the ambulance arrive then?
An ambulance arrived at some point, yes. Well, no, I think that it was not there at that time, no. There was no ambulance at that time.
Did you attempt to administer any aid at that time?
So we were close to the house, and the house was on fire. There's a large green fuel tank that was on the north side of the residence. So I was worried for other first responders, everybody on scene. So tried to make the decision to move Todd further away from the scene. The decision was made between, I'm not sure among all of us, was to find something to move Todd. Because I went to try to move him, and as I grabbed him, so I tried to grab him under his arms and kind of like a fireman carry, see if I could bring him back. But due to his skin slippage, I was unable to do that. I then attempted to try and grab his arms, and maybe I could pull him that way. And the skin came off of his arms and went down towards his hands.
Were you able to find something then to try to move him?
One of the persons there, we found like a molded sled, like a plastic sled or some sort.
A plastic sled?
Yeah. From what I recall, it's like a molded sled. I can't even tell you what color it was. It was
Just made of plastic?
That's my recollection. It was probably plastic.
And once you found that sled, what did you do?
So we moved Todd up, slid him into the sled, and then moved him about 100, 125 yards to the northeast away from the fire scene.
And once you got him moved, did other people arrive?
Yes.
And who arrived?
So the fire department arrived, the ambulance arrived after a little bit there. I also got a hold of my sergeant. I relayed stuff on the radio to him about for him to respond to the scene. Also, Deputy Gary Bruss from the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office arrived. When he arrived, I asked him to grab a CPR mask because after we moved him and got him up in that corner over there, he stopped breathing.
So did you attempt to administer any other aid at that point, or did they take over then with the CPR mask?
We all began doing CPR and compressions. I think it was 3 or 4 of us that did it. Coloma EMS, if I remember correctly, was on the scene. They asked us to continue doing that until he was pronounced.
And so at that time, he had stopped his labored breathing, but you were still continuing CPR.
Yes, and as we tried to do CPR on him, no more air would go into his mouth.
Did you observe the Ford Ecoline van at any time on scene?
I did.
And when did you first notice that?
I was after attending to the medical aid of Mr. Stermer. I saw a Ford Econoline van at the south side of the resident, or I'm sorry, the west. Well, that would be the west side of the residence. So behind the residence, with the front facing south.
So, and I just, for directionally challenged people like myself, the north side would be to the right of the house, correct?
So if I'm going down the driveway and I'm looking at the house, the right side is the north, the left side is the south.
So
Straight ahead would be west.
straight ahead would be west. So the Mr. Stermer and everybody were to the right on the north side when you first arrived.
Yes,
And then the van was in the rear of the home.
yes.
And was it facing towards the victim and towards the people, or was it facing away from?
It was facing away.
Anything you observed unusual about that van in the backyard?
It was running. I could see smoke coming from the tailpipe.
How close was it to the home?
It was fairly close, maybe 5 to 7 yards.
And it was still running?
Yes.
When you talked about moving Todd, where did you move him to, now that we have a better concept of direction?
So when we moved him, if we're facing the house, coming up the driveway to the north, and then a little bit back to the east.
So kind
it's
of
coming back
farther,
at me.
coming towards the backyard. Were you there when the medical examiner arrived?
I was, yes.
At that point, once the medical examiner had arrived, was Todd pronounced dead at that time?
I believe so, yes.
Once he was pronounced dead, did you have an opportunity to see his injuries a little bit more thoroughly?
Yes.
And how much of his body was burnt?
I would say 70%.
And you talked about skin slippage. Where was the skin slippage?
So on his arms, down by his hands. So the skin peeled off and went down towards his hands. He also had some skin slippage up when I tried to grab him up by the shoulder area.
And you talked about the lacerations and I believe some injuries you saw on the back. Is this the time that you saw the injuries then on the back?
Yeah, I noted there was a lot of blood when we moved him. And during the time of the CPR and looking at him, there's a large pool of blood when we moved him from the area where he was laying down. Brought him over there, and once we were doing our medical assessment of him, he was still bleeding from his head. And then he had some lacerations as well on his back.
Your Honor, I believe that defense counsel has stipulated to People's Exhibit Number 1, which includes it would include pictures 1 through 27. So we've labeled them all 1. So it'll be 1-1, 1-2, 1-3. And I believe we have a stipulation to admit these photos.
No, James, you stipulate, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes. And permission to publish. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to hand you the stack. So this is 1-1, and I just want to point out for the record that it's evidenced by the number 1 at the bottom right corner, just for the ability to keep the record clean. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at in item 1-1?
So that appears to be where Mr. Stermer was laying originally. before being moved. I also, it was marked with a flag as well.
So the flags were used for what purpose?
So the weather started getting bad, started raining, then started heavy raining, then it started to sleet, and then it started to snow. So the reason I used the flags was to mark where he was at, and I also saw some tire impressions on what appeared to be from the van going through the grass and back to the van.
And did you also mark the tire impressions?
I did, yes.
So I'm going to ask you, if you see places where you've marked tire impressions, if you could also then describe that to the jury.
On Exhibit 1.
Did you see any on Exhibit 1?
I see one other flag, but I'm not sure on this picture here.
Okay, I'll have you go to number 2 then. And can you describe to the jury what we're looking at here?
So number 2 is where Mr. Stermer was laying.
And can you tell by the picture then in relation to any tire tracks?
There are some tire tracks next to the flag there.
And would that be then towards the kind of a diagonal from the left to the right?
Yes.
That would be the tire track? Would that be the tire track?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to have you then go to 1-3. Could you describe for the jury what we're looking at here?
So that's where Mr. Stermer was laying.
That's
The 2 flags depict the tire tracks going I'm trying to orient myself on that.
Would it help to give you the pointer?
No, I can see
Okay,
that here.
okay.
I got it. So the 2 flags are representative of where the tire tracks were.
So I'm going to point out, so we have the orange flag and the red flag. Those are the tire tracks. Can you see on the screen where I'm touching them?
Yeah, the first flag depicting where, so the one on the left is depicting where Mr. Stermer was laying.
Okay.
The one past it, and it might be better with
On the next
the
picture.
next photographs,
Okay.
but that could be possibly where the other tire track was.
Okay. And then I want to then the darkened area immediately to the right of the flag. What is that? Do you see where I'm pointing?
That is blood.
Okay. And that's where Todd Stermer was laying?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to have you go down to the next photo. I'm sorry. And can you describe what we're looking at here?
That's another picture of where Mr. Stermer was laying.
And then any tire track, is this the same tire track?
Yes.
No, I just said, look at how close that tire track is to where his body was laying. Right next to it. There's no doubt in my mind that she ran this man over. She says she couldn't see him.
I'm going to go to the next slide, which I believe will be 5. What are we looking at here?
So I think you can see the van in the back. Look at the tire tracks, the one on the left and right. That is a tire track moving back towards the van.
So were you able to follow the tracks from where you first saw them to then the van that you found?
Yes,
And is this a progression of pictures as you're approaching the van?
it is.
Okay. So I'm going to go then to photo number 6, 1-6. What are we looking at here?
The picture, pretty much the same as the other one, depicting where the tire tracks were.
And are you just walking closer to the van in this
Correct.
time? And now I'm going to go to 1-7. What are we looking at here?
One dash seven is depicting where the two flags are, where the tire tracks are going back behind the house.
And again, then also where the victim was located.
Yes.
I'm going to go to 1-8. And what are we looking at here?
It's just another photo depicting where the tire tracks are going to the back of the house.
And in this photo, we can see part of the house. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so if we're looking at the house from this angle, what side of the house is that?
This is the north side.
So if I'm going down the driveway, this would be the right-hand side of the house.
Correct.
And just looking back up at it.
Yes.
I'm going to go to 1-9. And what are we looking at here?
That is a picture of the van.
And where was this again located?
On the west side of the residence, behind the house.
Behind the house. I'm going to go to 1-10. What are we looking at here?
Another picture of the van.
1-11.
So that's going to be a picture facing east, taking a passenger side picture of the van.
And so this is also showing part of the house. Again, what part of the house are we looking at here?
The south side.
And that would be the back side of the
Oh,
house?
I'm sorry, the west side. That would be the west side.
The west side, which is the back of the house?
Yes.
Would that be the lower level? Is that the walkout level?
I would assume so. I never went in it. So.
And I'm going to go to 1-12. And if you could just describe what we're looking at here.
Another picture depicting where the van was on the west side behind the house.
And the lighted up area obviously is still where the fire is occurring?
I'm not sure on that.
Okay. Do you know what the lighted area is?
I do not.
Okay. I'm going to go to 1-13. And what are we looking at here?
That's another picture of the van behind the house.
1-14. I see. Did you put a flag on this picture?
I did.
And why do you have a flag on this picture?
So when I was looking at the van, I noticed that on the brush guard, there appeared to be blood on it.
When you say the brush guard, what do you mean by the brush
For
guard?
below the chrome bumper, there was a plastic brush guard, and there appeared to be blood on it.
And that's what the flag is depicting?
Correct.
I'm going to go to 1-15. What are we looking at here?
That's another picture of the van with the flag near it, and you can kind of see a little bit of red to the right of the flag, and that is the blood that I saw.
So I'm going to go to the right of the flag,
Right on the brush guard there.
right there where I'm pointing. And I'm going to go to 1-16. What are we looking at here?
That's a picture of the driver's side of the van.
So your back would have been to the house at this
I would have been to
direction?
the house at this time, yes.
Go to 1-17. What are we looking at here?
That's the front of the van, straight on. So I'd have been facing the north. The van was facing the south. Where the flag is, to the left of it, there's a red mark, and that's what I believe to be blood on the van.
I'm going to go to 1-18. What is this?
That's another picture of the front of the van, where the previous flag was, and then what appears to be blood on the brush guard.
So just a close-up from the
Another
last picture.
close-up, yeah.
I'm going to go to 1-19. Is this another
That's
further
another
close-up?
close-up of the same.
I'm going to go to 1-20.
Another close-up of the same of what I saw.
1-21. Do you know what it is we're looking at here?
So if you see, kind of faint, but there's some flags out there. So if you go to the top, I don't know if you can see it from there. There's like 1, 2, 3 flags that I can see.
Are they red?
They're red. So that would be where the tire impression would be.
Am I pointing to the first one?
That would be on this side. So it would be on the north side.
Okay, that's one of the flags?
That's one of the flags. And then on the other side would have been the south side flags.
Okay, and then these 2 flags here?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to mark is where you could see the tire impressions going to the van. Again, it was pouring rain, getting hard, and freezing rain and a little bit of snow.
So at that time, you're just trying to make sure that you get the property marked?
I was trying to preserve it with whatever I had at the time.
I'm going to go to 1-22, and what are we looking at here?
So what I'm trying to depict there is if you look on the left, there's the flags going kind of rounded back towards the van. So on the right side, you can see the flags going back towards the van. The left side, flags going back towards the van. So I'm trying to capture how the van went around and parked.
So you were able to then, let me ask you this way, were you able to see where the van started and where it ended?
Initially, yes.
And you were able to follow that entire path?
Yes, I followed it from, not necessarily all the way from the front, but where I could see some tire impressions, I followed that to go around to the back of the van on the north side of the house.
Do you know how much you could see prior to Mr. Stermer's body? How much of the tire tracks you could see prior?
It wasn't a heavy impression. It was just a mild impression. It's like someone drove through your grass.
Was the ground more solid there?
At the time, the ground was more solid. There may have been just a little bit. It may have rained there before. I don't know. I'm not sure if it rained there before. But there was just a little bit of mud.
And then you were able to then track it up to the point of Mr. Stermer's body.
Yes.
And then you were able to track them going to the backyard.
Yes.
Was this a fluid track? Meaning, did you see any detours off of that curve?
I did not know.
Okay. So you were able to follow it in a pretty smooth curve.
Yes.
I'm going to go then to 1-23. What are we looking at here?
Again, depicting where the tire tracks were leading to the van.
And that's donated by the red flags?
Correct.
1-24.
The same thing. I think just a little bit better angle. I think you see a little more on this picture where the flags are going back towards the van.
And I want to ask you, are those flags going in 2 separate lines?
Correct.
So the flags on what would be more in the middle of the screen, those would have been.
The flags are near the tire tracks, yes.
And so let me ask you this way. So you're marking 2 sets of tire tracks?
2 sets of tire tracks.
The left side, the driver's side, and the passenger
Correct.
side. Okay.
And in this picture, you can see where there's looks like some medical supplies that might have been left out, some gloves or something. It looks like right there, that's where Mr. Stermer was laying.
Okay, when you say right there,
On the left side, above that white.
above this white,
So go above that and right there.
so right above the white,
Yes.
that's where, what is that?
It looks like that's where Mr. Stermer was laying.
And when you're talking about medical supplies, what are you talking about?
Gloves. Gloves, and maybe that was a bandage that I probably grabbed out of my car.
Okay. I'm going to go to 1-25. What are we looking at here?
It's another picture depicting the tire tracks and showing where Mr. Stermer was laying.
And again, I just want to be clear, there's 2 straight lines of flags, correct?
Correct.
And so the ones then on the left would be the driver's side, and the ones on the right would be the passenger side.
Yes.
I'm going to go to 1-26.
It's depicting pretty much the same thing. I think you can vaguely see the van up on the left-hand side there.
At the top of the
At
photo?
the top of the photo, yes.
So the van, is that the van there
Correct.
at the top?
Yes.
I'm going to go to -1-27. And what are we looking at here?
That's another photo depicting the tire tracks.
And I believe that is the last photo. Did you take any injuries of any photos of Mr. Stermer's injuries?
I did not.
After you had taken the pictures, mapped everything out, at some point were the detectives called?
Yes, I called my sergeant at the time, Verge Franks. I asked him to come out. He came out, and the decision was made to call our detective bureau in.
And who did you call?
Detective Maciowski, Detective Rout, Lieutenant Stone.
And you had mentioned that the medical examiner had arrived at some point.
Yes,
Do you recall who that was?
Amy Darling.
Did the fire department arrive while you were present?
Yes.
Were you able to obtain information about that van that was in the yard?
Through the Secretary of State system.
Did you determine who owned the van?
I believe it was owned by the Stermers.
What was done with the van?
That was told.
Do you know where it was taken?
I believe it was taken to Decatur Towing.
And why was it taken there?
The decision was made by the detectives to preserve the van for evidence and continue on.
Was the rain concerning at that time?
It was, yes.
Investigation, or did after they took over and started their investigation, did you receive any physical evidence from the Detective Bureau?
I got some clothing that was given to me by Detective Maciowski and Sergeant Franks.
And
I was not.
what was done with that clothing?
It was wet. Might have been some blood on it. I was asked to go take it to our crime lab at the sheriff's office and hang it up.
And why
dry
would
out.
and you said it was bloody and wet.
When I hung it up, I noticed there was some wetness on it and some blood. Yes.
And then that was that in a secure area that it was hung up?
Yes.
When, after you moved Mr. Stermer away from the house, were you able to then show the detectives where he first was? And at that time, was everything flagged for them?
So when I put the flags out there, but there's also other first responders on that north side. And I think one of the pictures here, it shows a tire track kind of going off. I believe that is to a first responder vehicle. That's not related to the tracks that I saw going to the Fort Econoline van.
And then did you inform the detectives of everything that you had seen?
I did.
And then was the scene secured for that evening?
Yes, it was.
And how was it secured?
I believe the detectives called the police to secure it and waiting on the fire marshal.
And the fire marshal, did they secure it until the fire marshal arrived?
To my knowledge, yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Just have a few questions. I want to go over some of what you observed when you got to the scene. First of all, you said that you saw Linda and you showed us she was kneeling over Todd.
Correct.
She was screaming his name, wasn't she?
She was yelling Todd, yes.
She was hysterical, essentially. Right?
She was yelling his name, yes.
Loudly?
Loudly, yes.
Out of control?
Wouldn't say out of control, but yeah, she was yelling his name, Todd, 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 over and over.
Did you help get her off of
Yes.
him? You were looking at some of the photos, and we saw the photos of the blood on the ground. You remember that?
Correct.
And comparing it to the tire track, right?
Yes.
There was no blood that you observed at the scene on the tires themselves. Is that right?
I didn't observe it on the tires, no.
In fact, we saw the blood on the bumper. Remember that? The brush guard, you called it.
Yes.
And the brush guard is about what? 10 inches off the ground,
I'm not 100% sure how far up that is, but
roughly.
roughly.
Okay. 10 inches off the ground, and it was inside the tire, wasn't it?
Yes.
Right. You didn't see any evidence of any blood on the vehicle itself that would suggest the tire impacted Todd, fair?
Yeah, I did not know.
The Econoline van was taken to Decatur towing, and you had nothing to do with it after that?
I had nothing to do with it, no.
The clothing that you took, did you know it was Linda Stermer's clothing?
Don't recall if I was told that by Verge Franks or by Masiowski.
One way or another, you don't know.
One way or another, I don't know at this time.
But you took it to the crime lab, right?
Correct.
And you stored it personally in some area?
So the sheriff's office has a secure crime lab area. So you could go in there and hang up stuff, any type of evidence. They do fingerprints in there if they were trying to get lead prints off of an item. If you were a crime technician, et cetera.
Are you a crime technician?
In 2002, I went to a basic 35-hour class that covered basic crime scene.
Okay. In 2007, January 7, 2007, you were not a crime scene technician for the Van Buren County Sheriff's, fair?
Well, I would get called out sometimes to do fingerprints, basic stuff, castings of a tire, but any advanced crime scene technician, no.
Okay. Were you aware of the policies of the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office with respect to how evidence is stored and secured?
I'd imagine I was at that time.
You can't just tell us as you sit here today, fair?
Fair.
And you don't know, well, you didn't separately bag any of the evidence, did you?
I did not.
You just kept it and stored it in the room together as you found it.
I hung it up separately, yes.
Okay.
Then noted it in a report.
But you don't know the way you hung it up and where you stored it was in compliance with the sheriff's office policies and procedures, fair?
Fair.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Just briefly, Your Honor. You never had the opportunity to examine underneath the van, did you?
I did not know.
And you're trained as to how to store evidence, correct?
Yes,
And you have policies and procedures on how to store evidence.
yes,
And that was the secured area that the evidence was put into, correct?
correct.
And did you follow the policies and procedures at that time of how to handle evidence?
Objection form. Leading.
I did, yes.
Thank you. I
To
know
my
that.
knowledge, I did, yes.
As an officer, do you review policy and procedures?
Yes,
And are you informed by command staff of what policy and procedures are?
yes,
And do you follow policy and procedures as given to you?
yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
I asked you just a second ago, were you aware of the policy of securing and storing the evidence on January 7, 2007? You told me you didn't know, right?
I did not know the actual policy procedure on that date. no.
Okay. You generally you were aware of the policies, how you're supposed to do it.
Correct, yes.
But as you did those pieces of clothing, you don't know if they complied with the sheriff's office policy.
I do
Fair?
not know at that time, yes.
Thank you.
So no further questions, Your Honor. Jurors, do you have any questions for this witness? I've got a couple of hands going up, so if you have one ready, please write down your questions, we'll retrieve them.
Ow. So he knows the policies and procedures, but he's not sure if he knew them in 2007. Okay.
Don't be suspicious. No, don't be suspicious. 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 Don't be suspicious.
John Ralphio? Kom, je dikke stem is op! Kom eruit, man! Je dikke stem is op! Je dikke stem is op!
Yeah, I think the evidence collection was done a little better in this case. Yeah, it's kind of hard to remember what you knew 18 years ago. And when you work in a field where policy and procedures are changed often, that's the same with nursing. Like, if I were to try to go back and be a nurse.
Some questions from the jury, sir. No objection from counsel. First one is, do you know if the van was stuck behind the house or merely parked, just if you know?
It did not appear to be stuck, it appeared to be parked.
Okay. Were the tire tracks on the dirt drive around the house? Were they on the dirt drive around the house?
It was on a grass dirt area. I don't know if that's what they use as their drive or not.
Okay. Any blood, mud trail, or drag marks from Todd to the house prior to moving him?
Not that I saw, no.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions in light of my questions and answers? Inside of me?
I would just like to follow up one.
Yeah,
Unless
do you have any-
council had a question.
Okay.
Sir, that second question had to do with tire tracks around what you call the dirt drive. It wasn't even a driveway, right?
No, it looks like maybe they use that to drive around to the back of their house.
Did you see any tire tracks? Strike that. If you had seen that, you would have measured that off and flagged it, right?
If I would have saw, yes, I would have flagged that off, yes.
You didn't notice anything.
I did not know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to be clear, when you talk about the drive around, what material was that? Was it dirt, was it grass?
Dirt, there was no concrete, gravel, anything like that that I recall.
So was it mainly grass?
Objection, small, speculate.
How much of it was grass?
I'm not sure
Okay,
how much was grass.
okay. Were there any defined tracks that you were able to say that this was something that was used in the past?
Not that I recall.
Okay, I have no further questions.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Jury, do you have any other questions of him in light of what's happened, the latest questions? Okay, you do, ma'am? Is it written down yet? Okay, we'll retrieve it from you.
It should be, do you have any questions? Then ask the questions and then that's done. You don't get to keep asking and asking and asking. Judge, when are we going to lunch? I need that sound clip.
Sir, another question from the jury. When you first saw Todd, do you know if he was laying on his back or stomach? when
He
you
was on
found
his
him?
back.
I'm sorry.
On his back.
Okay. Counsel, any questions in light of that question and answer?
Sir, I think you said you were about the fifth person to arrive? Fifth?
There is
Masali,
Masali,
Matheny,
Matheny,
Calhoun, and Leach before you.
Correct.
And Liddell.
That I remember, yes.
Okay. So you're the fifth person. You don't know how long it was from the time Todd Stermer was first found by Mr. Matheny to the time you got there, fair?
I do not know.
So when you got there, he was on his back, fair?
Yes.
And you don't know what had transpired with respect to Matheny, Masali, and Ms. Calhoun before that, right?
Correct.
In terms of whether he was on his back or he was on his face, fair?
Fair. When I arrived, he was on his back.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No questions? May he be from his Senate counsel?
I would ask that he be excused, Your Honor.
Do you want him to, are you okay with him being excused from subpoena? Okay, thank you. Okay, sir, you're all done.
Thank you.
We'll take our lunch break now. I'll have you return to the jury room at 1:30. And please remember the instructions. Do not talk about the case with anyone or allow anyone to talk about it with you. Do not watch any media reports of the case. Thank you.
Yeah, I like jury questions too, because you're right. It does give you a little insight into what they're thinking. But to say, okay, well, do you have any more questions because of the questions that they just answered? That's just going to make it go on and on and on. I'm not sure that's a good idea. But yeah, I like jury questions too. Okay, guys. I guess we will come back at 1:30. I'm going to get something to eat, and I'm trying to set up a Facebook group for us, but I did something wrong, and I was trying to do it on my phone. Because anytime I try to open another window on the computer, it gets all glitchy. So I was trying to do it on my phone, but during lunch I'll try to do it on the computer, and then maybe I won't have problems. I was trying to make like questions, for people that want to join, and I did something wrong and it didn't give me that option. So I'll do it on the computer during the break. That way nothing will glitch, and hopefully I'll do it right and we'll have a Facebook group. So okay, I will see you guys back at 1:30. Okay, bye guys. I will see you then. Have a good lunch. Bye.